Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the rocket stove / experiment build. In the first video I showed the rocket stove build itself. In this video I'm going to show you my add-on experiment. Then we're going to take it out into the yard and we're going to try to cook with it and boil water with it. And that's how I'm going to see if it's a successful build. Before I begin cutting notches in this can, I'm going to take this aluminum wire and I'm going to make kind of a cooking grate for my stove. I'm using this aluminum wire because it's lightweight and it's a thick gauge wire, and I don't believe the stove will exceed the 1200 degrees needed to melt it. So this is going to kind of be my first test. The first thing I'm going to do is just make me a loop that I believe will fit inside the can. I'm going to take and wrap the wire around it, kind of like weaving a basket, I guess you'd say. And I'm going to try to go 3 wraps with it. I don't know how well this is going to work, but that's why it's called an experiment. I'm going to give it a test fit before I get too far along with it. That'll work because I want it to fit kind of snug. Alright, so here's my test fit on it, and it is snug, which is what I want. Now that I have my outer ring together, I'm going to take and put in some cross braces out of that same wire so that it kind of looks like a pie. Here's my little grill grate that I made, and it's a little bit larger than the diameter of the can so that I can compress it and it'll stay in there via friction. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and cut the notches in the side of my can to allow the airflow, and I'm not going to breach this ring around the top of it because I want my can to remain rigid. I cut 2 sets of notches in this. The ones down here actually hold the ring in. Then I cut another set up here on the top, and those are for my little experimental grill grate that I made for it. And that's what I was talking about when I said I wasn't going to be able to show me actually cutting those notches, this, that, and the other, because I wasn't quite sure how and where I was going to put those notches. I put them in there kind of as a stop so that when I put that grill grate in there, it'll hold it up. And because I wanted this whole thing to be portable, I added just, a little wire handle to it, make it easier to carry. And I have looked at complete assemblies like this, various, big box websites or whatever, and they run like $150 or more for them. And I literally have, nothing in this. I mean, it's just made out of some scrap parts. So there's our little rocket stove. Let's go outside and test it out, see how it cooks. For me to consider this a successful build, I want to be able to cook and boil water off this little stove. Now, it's already like 100 degrees here in Alabama, so I could probably just stick this out in the sun and do both. As far as fuel for this fire goes, to get it started, I'm going to use dryer lint, and I've got, some sticks, things of that nature, and I've also got some hardwood lump charcoal, just a couple of pieces of that. And I may use that because you can actually make something like that in a off-grid or grid-down type situation to help fuel your fire. So let's get started on it. Now I'm going to use a fire steel and my knife just to kind of get the fire going. So far it seems like it's working pretty good. I don't know if y'all can see the fire yet or not, but just that little bitty piece of dryer lint has really kick-started my kindling that I just put in there. So for cooking, I'm going to try to do some bannock bread, and I took this out of one of my DIY MREs that I make. Now, as you can see, my bannock didn't turn out all that spectacular this time, but blame myself for that, for being in a hurry. The thing I've learned about using this little stove is not to block the airflow coming into your combustion chamber through your air inlet. Like I said, you kind of got to go slow with putting in the wood and things of that nature so that you don't clog everything up. It's still kind of doughy. So far my aluminum cooking grate is holding up pretty good, so that's a plus. These pieces that fell off in there is pretty good. That's another little trick, is from time to time just kind of take the bottom inlet and clear it out with another piece of wood, and it fires right back up. All right, so here's our bread's a little burnt on the outside, but it is done. That's pretty good. All right, so we got our bannock done. So that's part one of the test I'm going to consider a success. So next up, I'm going to try to boil some water. I said my little cooking grate's working pretty good. And this is the reason why I made that cooking grate, is so that I could set a cup on it, because not everything that I have is going to be large enough just to fit around on the ridge of the can itself. I guess it's true what they say, everything does taste better outdoors. I just ate some burnt bread and it tastes pretty good. And again, when doing something like this, the backyard is the best place to do it. So you can learn any kind of tips or tricks on how to keep your fire going, how to keep your fire going hot, things of that nature. Now, I know this is kind of boring sitting here watching water boil, but the reason why I'm leaving this unedited is because I wanted to see how long it would take for it to boil without any kind of editing or trickery or anything like it, so you yourself can see that this will, boil water. Or at least we hope it'll boil water anyway. Now I'm just taking and stoking this little fire every few minutes or whatever as it dies down, and when I do, it immediately blows back up, and like a little fire tornado kind of deal. So, and we're starting to get some boiling going on here, along with a little bug that just flew in there, but it's just protein, it ain't gonna hurt nothing. One thing I've noticed about this little rocket stove is when a gust of wind comes up, it doesn't really affect it. In fact, it actually helps it. Now, I'm not expecting this to boil like it would on a stove, get like a rolling boil, because of the heat sources are different, but this is throwing out some little bubbles, and it is boiling, so to speak. There's the boil itself, and I wouldn't call it any more rigorous than that. So there's the boil on it, and like I said, that is about as vigorous a boil as I think you can get. So now that I got it boiling, I'll make a little cup of coffee. When boiling water to purify it or whatever, there's a difference between, purifying water and filtering water. There is some conjecture on how long you should boil water to purify it. The standard, is 5 minutes, but the scientific people say that even a minute of, a rolling boil like this will kill bacteria. So, I'll leave it up to you. 5 minutes, 1 minute, your call. But I think this is boiled long enough and proof that this little rocket stove works. And I'm going to consider this a successful test of not just the stove, but my cooking grate as well. Because like I said, you can see it's still well intact. I don't know how many uses I'll get out of this, but there it is. And like I said, nothing around here goes to waste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do me a little hole right here next to my plants. And I'm just going to take this coffee filter out. That's going to be some black coffee. And I'm just going to drop it in there and cover it back up and let it decompose right here. So there you have the DIY rocket stove and the add-on grate to it. I made that whole entire stove for nothing, just scrap parts that I had laying around. And I proved that it is an effective stove. Not to toot my own horn, but the cooking grate performed flawlessly, and it allowed me just to use a cup rather than a full-blown mess kit. Like I always say, this is another great piece of equipment that you could take out into your backyard, get your kids, and have a little mini cookout and experiment with it before you actually have to use it. So anyway, thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.